Over the weekend, several hundred protesters showed up here in Frankfort. Their demands were simple in wording: reopen Kentucky. The message this morning was all about staying calm and listening to the CDC, as well as trusting the community leaders around the state, many of whom were here at the Capitol this morning.
Have the inspiring story of a college student from Kentucky who is making masks for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. WLEX's Claire Kopsky has more.
21-year-old Ashley Lawrence is learning a new skill.
You want the needle to go like in here.
And my mom really likes to craft, and she's really good at just picking stuff up and just doing it. So I came down one morning and I was like, what if we made a mask?
But these aren't just any masks. They're for the deaf and hard of hearing.
People who are profoundly deaf, who use ASL as their primary mode of communication. ASL is very big on facial expression.
WLEX's Claire Kopsky. For more information, you can go to NBCnews.com. And Chuck, you can't see it, but I definitely am smiling underneath this mask.
Now to something a little more hopeful and an update to a story we first brought you last week. Ashley Lawrence is a senior in Kentucky and decided to help members of the deaf and hard of hearing back in March by making masks with a clear plastic window. Since then, her project has actually taken off. It's reaching people all over the world. Claire Kopsky of WLEX in Kentucky has this report.
You may remember this picture. An Eastern Kentucky University senior.
Thirdly, sadly, there has been an instance, he said, with one positive case in Nelson County with someone who has refused to self-isolate. The governor said, unfortunately, they have had to force that person into their home with a member of law enforcement outside. The governor is asking Kentuckians to practice proper social distancing. He's trying to lead by example, and that started this morning here in the press room with the spreading out of chairs. Following May 11th, the governor says for the next 4 weeks, he will continue to ease restrictions to the point that some industries may be fully back online. But he says a condition of that slow open is that Kentuckians need to wear face masks whenever they're in public spaces. On every bend of Muddy Ford Road, we're seeing scenes like this. Water where it's not supposed to be. The tree fell into a bedroom on the third story of the home, right above where the resident's daughter was sleeping. We have been just seeing lots of rain this morning, and that temperature hovering right around that 32, 33 mark. So in some areas of our viewing area, like we've been talking about this morning, are going to see some slippery conditions, but we've been lucky. We've been seeing just lots of rain. Right now we are on I-75. Tom, it sounds like one of the most important things families, businesses, and schools can do is to prepare through the C-Duck plan. Can you explain what that acronym means? This is where Buntain thinks someone unscrewed the back of his garage, lifted the panel, and crawled on it. One of the first things a jockey needs to master is their physical fitness, especially in their core and in their grip strength, so they can get up in two-point position and keep a hold of their horse. Now, something I thought was really interesting was that within one race, there could be multiple silks that are identical. Although it's unlikely, Triple Crown Silk says there's no rule against it. They do have 3 Derby contenders wearing their silks, so I can only imagine who they'll be betting on. So if you can't wait on curb pickup for 2 weeks, you can still drop off your recyclables here in the bins at the recycling center. Now, the Madison Central Marching Band is the 6th band in today's Macy's Day Parade, so tune into LEX 18 starting at 9 o'clock this morning and keep a lookout for the local marchers. Claire and Chris, back to you.
Nobody that we met that really didn't know us ever knew Finn was sick unless he told them, and he was pretty proud of his scar, so he told a lot of people.
But that wasn't the case every day, and certainly not 7.5 years ago.
When he was born, I questioned it from the time he came out. I said, something's wrong with him, he's not the right color. And the doctors and nurses all dismissed it and said, this is just the way babies look. And I was like, I've got 6.
When Finn was just 21 hours old, he crashed.
He was kind of an ashen gray color. His nails were blue. We knew something was going on, but we didn't know what. I didn't know children got heart disease from birth.
Finn was born with 5 out of the 12 congenital heart defects.
Finn coded on us 3 times, and he died 3 times that we know of.
He knew he was sick, but didn't let that faze him.
He wanted to be a jockey.
Yeah, he wanted to be a jockey. His favorite place in the world to go was Keeneland.
Finn lives a full life with his whole heart, surviving 5 major heart surgeries in his 7 short years. But last year, an arrhythmia took his heart up to 400 beats per minute.
When he went into sudden cardiac arrest in April, there was no warning sign. He had been to Chick-fil-A to have lunch. He had been to Malibu Jacks to play. They had come back home. They were saying goodbye to some friends, and he collapsed.
He passed. The 10th of every month is a little different.
Wednesdays are hard at 4:15.
Yeah.
Yep.
Throughout Finn's life, he was an American Heart Association lobbyist, appearing at events here in Kentucky and in Washington, D.C.
Just because Finn's gone doesn't mean you get to stop. In fact, he would be upset with us.
That's why the family's now taking submissions for the Finn COLLIER Youth Service Award.
I know there are kids out there who are raising money, raising awareness for heart issues for kids, and I think they need to be recognized. So we're hoping to get a lot of nominations and choose a recipient in May at the Heart Walk.
We as adults make bad decisions a lot of times, and that's where our heart disease comes from. These kids were born with something they didn't choose, and they need somebody to fight for them and somebody to tell their story.
In Jessamine County, Claire Kopsky, LEX 18 News.
14,000 Lexingtonians opened their mailbox last week to find this card. It appears to be sent from Fayette County Public Schools, but it was actually sent from school board member Will Nash, using the district's logo and the district postage code to save money.
The card lists statements about Mr. Nash identical to what's on his campaign website. It also says he wants to hear from you, directing recipients to district1survey.com. That site asks for your name and email address before you can fill out and submit the 10-question survey. Mr. Nash tells me this survey was all about getting to know his constituents in District 1.
My intent was to try to create more avenues and to make it easy. You know, the first thing that I received as a new board member was a board cell phone and a board email address. And that signals to me that communication is important.
A Fayette County Schools teacher whose voice we've altered to protect her identity is amongst several others who tells us something about this card felt off.
Why are we deceiving people into feeling like they got a mailer from the school system and now being told it wasn't from the school system?
But if he wanted opinions from those in his district, parents, teachers, and other board members want to know why Mr. Nash didn't send it out when he first joined the board last fall.
So there again, unethical. It's just really bothersome.
Mr. Nash tells me he just thought of the idea and says it has nothing to do with his campaign.
As I shared, there's an election in District 1 this November, and there's an election in District 1 next November, and so there's literally no time that I might not be campaigning. And so that's a criticism that I just have to bear because there will be critics, and that's the nature of public service, I think.
After the use of phone numbers from the district, parents and teachers I spoke with say they're concerned that if they share their email address in the survey, they can't trust Mr. Nash won't use it for his campaign.
Well, I'm not, so let me state that clearly. And if anyone has that concern, I would just say don't share your email address with me.
He suggests just typing fake information if you're concerned. But the concerns don't stop there. This week, Mr. Nash handed me his receipts that he says proves he paid the $4,400 for the mailer.
Write your name, go ahead and get a marker, get started.
A marker and a brown paper bag.
I think that kids' art is the best thing ever. It's the best art. It's pure and it's true and honest.
This week in Michelle Thomas's art classes, her 357 students are using art to grapple with some of the darkest sides of our nation's history.
He always said when he was little he had friends, and then now they couldn't play with each other because he was black and the other people were white.
So I asked them to create a work of art that shows what they've learned about Martin Luther King. And that could be as something as basic, especially for the younger kids, as a portrait of Martin Luther King and how we use shapes to make a picture of a person. But then with the older kids, it's like more like, what was his dream and what is your dream and how can you keep the dream alive?
After several lessons about Dr. King, the students went to work on the brown bags from Kroger.
We want to draw with pencil and get to it, guys.
Those bags will be used to bag groceries at the Bryan Station Kroger starting on Saturday.
Maybe it'll inspire them to make a change or have a discussion with somebody, their own children or peers, or just maybe be a catalyst for change.
Change inspired by a second grader's drawing.
What I put on my bag is what he said in comments, that white people and black people should be together. Love yourself on the bottom where his shoulder is, and a true hero. And I have a big dream. I put it 2 times because his dream did come true.
In Lexington, Claire Kopsky, LEX 18 News.